I would like for Christophe Pelissié du Rausas to join us now on stage and basically help us to understand those trends behind the two examples that we saw. First, energy of tomorrow, including nuclear, and second, around these trends of infrastructure of energy, and basically help us understand at VINCI level or at your perspective, how do you see those topics being fundamental for the years to come?
Okay. Good afternoon to all. I'm very pleased to be with you. Thanks for our panelists. Thanks Roland, thanks Florence, and thanks our British colleagues, even if the sound and the conditions were not perfect. But I think we understood, I would say, the size and the criticity of this challenge. And the first thing I want to draw your attention upon is the fact that, in fact, we are contemplating the two faces of the same coin. The two faces of the same coin, because nuclear power and transmission lines, T&D, all this business, in fact, what is behind that is the necessity of having stable electricity network, stable electricity production. You know, as I know, that an electricity grid, an electricity production system, you must create the equilibrium between production and demand at each second. And if you don't do it, it happens what happened in Spain some weeks ago. I mean, I had the same, more or less the same sentences, I think, start of April. So, and the Spanish breakout didn't happen yet at that time, but it happened. It happened. And if you look back to the history, I would say breakouts are not so scarce. I mean, look, 2021 Texas, it's not an underdeveloped country. I mean, Texas, electricity size of Texas is the size of France. It's an island. They are not connected to the other states. It's their choice, because they are Texan, that's their choice. But it's the size of France. And I discussed with, you know, the regulation in Texas is ERCOT. I discussed with an ERCOT director, and I thought it was like, you know, a bad remembrance. He told me, you cannot imagine what it was. 70 hours without electricity in a country like Texas, 200 fatalities, 200 fatalities. And I was in my flat. He told me it was 1 in my flat, 1 degree, 1 Celsius degree in my flat. And I told him, because, you know, he's American, so I said to him, look, I was fishing, if you want, and I told him, perhaps you were sued. He looked at me. I said, did I say something stupid or whatever? He said, well, of course we were sued. And he looked at me and he said, 4. I said, for what? $4 billion. We were sued $4 billion for that blackout. And this happened. This happened in Texas. If you look in the history recently, it happened 23 in Sao Paulo, in Brazil. It happened 25 in Chile. It happened 25 in Spain. So it's not so scarce. I mean, at the end, if you don't create the equilibrium between production and demand in an electricity grid, every second you have this kind of blackout. So if you look at the production, you need, in English, it's controllable production source. In France, it's pilotable. So you need a certain proportion of pilotable or controllable sources. What is pilotable? What is controllable? Fossil, of course, but that's what you try to get out, to get out of. Hydro, but very often in your geography, many sites are already equipped. You can probably increase hydro, but not so much. And nuclear, and that's why so many countries turn to nuclear. And you can look at it in England, in the UK. I saw 2 days ago, British government announced £12 billion additional for nuclear. You go to Italy, you go to France, you go to the US. Nuclear is a kind of revival because of this, because if you don't have enough controllable sources, you don't have a stable network with so many decentralized and intermittent sources. So I would say it's the beginning, it's a start, it's not the end. It will be even, I think, more intensive. So this is for nuclear, but of course, in order to stabilize the networks, you also need this high voltage line, these substations, this interconnection that makes the network more stable. And we say in VINCI since, I would say, 1 or 2 years, in broad terms, you need €1 in production and €1 in T&D. And very often, I would say state, public authorities are forgotten a little bit, this €1 to 1 euro. They were more like 40 cents to 1 euro rather than 1 euro to 1 euro. The good news, I think, is that this has changed. There were big schemes that were announced by many authorities. Perhaps you have seen that EU, this was perhaps the earliest. EU was in 23, they said like, if I remember well the figure, 584 million euro for 7 years, which is more or less 70, 80 billion a year in the EU. You have the same movement in France with RTE. We said, if I remember well, 40 billion by 2040. You have the same movement in the UK. We saw it with so much money in the grid. You have the same movement in the US, the same move in the US. So these are in fact the two faces of the same coin. And I think we had very good approaches by our panelists on that. I wanted to keep three main comments on this big trends in the industry. So the first one is the one linked with, I would say, human resources challenge. We are in a world where many people think that, okay, making a beautiful image, a beautiful dream, and then a planification makes it happen. No, we know, as VINCI, we know you have to execute it, you have to do it on the ground, and for this you need people. I think, and we have some competitors or partners or suppliers and clients in the room, I think we have collectively a big challenge in human resources. We have to think collectively how to attract, I would say, young people, even more mature people in our businesses, and not, just poach it from each other, which doesn't change anything at the end. We need some persons, some people that want to do our jobs, but really do it, not only planify it, not only think about it, but really do it. This is the first thing. We have collectively a big human resources, a big talents, scarcity of talents, scarcity of human resources, I think is the first comment I would have. The second comment on this relates to what you said about SMR. I think in SMR, the important letter is M, modular. It has to be modular. You said it, I think it's very important. And so the next question is, how do you do it? But I think you are losing the scale effect, as you said. But you have to compensate it to catch up the scale effect by the modular effect, by the repetitivity, by the capacity of building in the factories. And this is something that I think is also a common challenge, because my intuition, but I think you said it also, is to do so, and Florence said it also, to do so you have to involve partners very early, create a real alignment of interest, and be innovative in this, in a way, contracting approach. If you just want to apply a very classical procurement scheme as you have ever done, yeah, it will not work. It will not work. And if you link it to the first question, to the scarcity of resources, as a PC contractor today, you have plenty of job. You have plenty of work. Why should I go to a procurement scheme where I'm going to be, lose 9 months to understand, and then perhaps it's not doable. Perhaps, I think this is linked. Today, in the actual world, in the present world, you have to create this kind of alignment of interest early if you want to create some modularity, repetitivity, and then at the end, predictability of time and budget. And this is the third comment I would have. And I think, again, to make it in a nutshell, the important letter is a M. And I think this bounces on the third comment I wanted to do related to finance. All these projects, all these challenges represent, benches, piles of money, tens of billions, you're speaking even in trillions, whatever. We think, because we have already gone through this kind of challenge in other kind of infrastructures, not in electricity, but in other kind of infrastructure, that at a certain point in time, you have really to be able to blend, if you want, the public money and the private money, and create the conditions of that. And this, I think, predictability is a key for that. Of course, you have today, and I think it's a big change we have seen, all of us, you have some private money in the nuclear. You have seen, perhaps in the first slide that Julian was showing, you show the Microsoft. Microsoft wants to restart 3 Mile Island. I mean, for people in the nuclear, to restart 3 Mile Island, it's iconic if you want. And you know, and I've kept this figure in mind, to restart 3 Mile Island, and this bounces to your 60 to 100 euro per megawatt hour. They said they are giving a PPA, a power purchase agreement, $115 per megawatt hour for 20 years. For 20 years. So you have some private money today in nuclear. We in VINCI received, I don't know, 2 months ago, was in my office in the evening. Everything was calm. Received a message. Meta, I think it's the mother house of Facebook, a kind of call for thunders. You know, 3 pages. We want to procure 4 gigawatt of nuclear plant. Who is able to provide it? I think it's a major change. I mean, for me, nuclear, as a French person, it's EDF, it's industry, the state, all the system, if you want, with a big S. And now these guys who are, you know, making social networks, calling you and okay, I want 4 giga of nuclear, guys. I mean, it's a change. It's a huge change. And okay, so you have some private money in the nuclear, but if you want to make the big flows, I mean, having worked in private finance of infrastructure, if you want to have the big flows, you have to be able to predict time and budget. I mean, otherwise, the big mass of finance, I mean, the lenders will not come. And so we have to. So I think that the 3 comments I wanted to have. First one, in human resources, I think it's a common challenge in the industry. It's not only for VINCI, it's not only for our, you know, partners or competitors or suppliers, it's for all of us. The second is on how to better work together to create this modularity, alignment of interest. I mean, I go quickly, but it's the same at the end, I think. And the third one is how to attract private finance, because I think without private finance, this will not happen. I think that you can demonstrate it by figures. I have some figures somewhere that the state really don't have the money to do everything. That I wanted to tell you.
Thank you very much, Christophe. Do we have any questions? We have the opportunity to have Christophe with us. It was, I think, very interesting to understand the macro and big level issue. Any questions on that? Yes.
Both the earlier speaker and Christophe mentioned standardization or modular. We as an industry haven't managed to achieve it in our 2,000-year history of construction. You know, we've built millions of homes, but they're not standardized generally. What makes us think that we're going to crack that challenge with SMRs?
Does this one work?
Thank you for the question. First, I would like to thank you, Christophe, for highlighting the need of attract private capital thanks to predictability of cost and delay. And it's linked to your question. Because the way we can predict delay and costs is industrialization. And we don't have money if we don't have industrialization. And what's happening today in the United States with data center is true not only for the data center, it's true also because there is no one investors in technologies such as Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, who is not investing today in SMR technology. They all have a stake somewhere in the project. And there is a pile of money coming not only from the GAFAs, but also from private investors directly. So it's key, and thank you for highlighting it. How makes me think that SMR is a good occasion to industrialize? There is no many example of project for which you have that offer. You were talking about houses, but who wants the same houses from the neighbor? Nobody. I mean, I built recently an extension of my house. I don't want the same than the neighbor. I want my own places, and I built rated specification, very precise for my constructor. Here we have €1 billion project, and we have the occasion to construct exactly the same 100, 200, 300 times. Not many examples where you can do that. Transport, no, every station is different. I don't know. Yeah, but with concrete, I mean with concrete for construction. So I think we must take a look at it, and it's a good occasion for constructors on one hand and energy players like us to engage something new at this occasion, to think how we can industrialize construction.
Thank you. We do our own industry of prototypes. So.
An additional note that I think in nuclear plant you have some parts that are electromechanical that you could do on not skid really, but you could really do in factories. It's not, you know, if you compare to houses, in houses your percentage of concrete, rebars and so on is higher. I think there you have some parts. I mean, in the oil and gas industry they are doing certain parts repetitive you know, out of sight if you want.
If we didn't have concrete, we would know, thanks, for example, Technip or other players in the energy field, in oil and gas, know how to build large steel modules with pumps, with valves, etc. When it comes to concrete, that's something completely new. And frankly, we have to invent it.
You have to do it repetitive, in fact.
Yes, but yeah, invent new techniques.
I was just, maybe I came in the middle of this discussion, but just saying to you, you said that nobody wants similar apartments, but I think that it's not a question if we are standardizing. So mass customization is a key, so that we have principles of our technical concept, but then we can have a kind of variation. We have very good experience from that, and it really works nicely. And so I think that there's no reason to think that we cannot standardize product as well, but mass customization.
Okay, thank you very much for that discussion and these insights.